America. I'm Osei-Frimpong. I come to you every Thursday, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between politics and business. Politics is not a business. You should not go into the voting booth or think of your political speech as an expression of your business interest and looking out for your business interests, because business interests are particular and politics is about how to order the whole to unify the whole. And why that's important is because you get a lot of people who confuse playing the game with governing the game. And we get a lot of people who confuse what it is to be a self-determined actor in civil society with a particular interest, which is perfectly appropriate, and a self-determined political actor, which is always thinking about the universal interest, which means setting the rules for everyone to follow. And not just because they work for you particularly, but because those are the rules for everyone to follow for the unified, just game. So that even if you lose, the rules are good. Even the rules don't particularly favor some eccentricity you have, that's perfectly appropriate, right? Because these are the rules for everybody. But then, when you act as a particular person chasing your business, it's perfectly appropriate for you to exploit every rule you can. Right. So if you act as a civilian civil society, that is you trying to seek your particular interest through usually market-based principles, and there's competition. But then if you think about the rules that govern that competition and govern your civil participation and your private particular interests, and when you're thinking about how to govern those rules, that's different. That's political. You're doing politics. You're exercising self-governance in a way that can only be with other people about what should the rules of the game be? What should the rules of the game be, regardless of my particular interest? And if you get those confused, you actually are doing bad politics. You're abusing the office. It's a dereliction of duty, the duty of the citizen. So you have the duty of the civilian, which is to seek their particular interest through a market-based civil society, and the duty of the citizen, whose duty is to think about the rules that govern the whole society, through which people act as civilians who seeking their particular interests, right? So this is why we have a pretty immature political culture, because people think that all power is civil power, which means that they should be able to use all power for a come-up. Last week, I talked about how there's going to be a difference between what you do for a business and what you do for your family, because what you do for your business is for your interest that can be abstracted from the business. You could use the business to make your person money, right? And then sell the business. What happens to the business? It's not your problem. Like whatever, that was just something you did in order to make money. That's not the way you think about family, because the family isn't something alienable from you. It's part of who you are. You're not an individual prior to the family. When you're in a family, you're an individual through the family, right? So if something happens to a member of your family, it also kind of happens to you. It's not an alienable thing. You can't just sell your family and be like, well, that was it. On to the next thing, right? In the way you can sell your business to somebody else and be like, well, I sold my business, got my payout. Now it's their problem. That's not the way it should or does work with family, right? And so this is important. The difference between acting as a civilian, as a particular individual in civil society who's trying to play in the market to win for themselves, and someone who is acting politically, that means concerned with the universal, concerned with the rules for the whole, right? The difference between the player of the game and the governor of the game. The difference between the coach of one particular team and the ref who governs the whole, who administers the rules for the whole, right? And if you don't understand that, then you don't quite understand why the speech of, say, a business isn't the same as political speech. The speech of a business isn't political speech, because the speech of a business could only be particular. It can only be self-serving. It can only be a kind of marketing for the business's particular interests, because the business as an entity is a willful entity that can only work as an actor in civil society. It can't act as a governor. Even like particular interests like the Chamber of Commerce or a labor union, they have particular interests. They're not governing for the whole. They're governing for their particular set, their particular class. So, which is why it's good that we don't have a labor party. But we still need to be more pro-labor just because we need to balance the power between labor and capital in the United States. So we can be pro-labor without being a labor party. You're pro-labor because you care about justice. In the same way you can be, pro-black because you care about justice. And there's an outstanding debt owed to black people. So if you care about justice universally, then you're going to be pro-black. Does that make sense? That's not special pleading if you're pro-black and you care about justice because there's an outstanding justice claim. It would be special pleading if you're pro-black just because it happens to help you and you don't care about the outstanding justice claim. That would be special pleading because you're acting as a civilian and you while taking a political office, right? Wielding political power, right? So you can lobby political power, but when you act as political power, you have to act as with a concern for the whole, not just your particular interests. You can lobby with your particular interests in mind, but when you act with concern for the whole. And when you lobby, you're lobbying as a civilian. You're out lobbying as a civil actor. And you can act as a civil actor. But then you can also act, unlike a business that can only act as a civil actor, you can also act as a political actor, which is concerned with the universal. I hope that makes sense. This is important. A lot of people get it confused. They treat everything like a business just because we have such a degraded culture that the only way we know how to think about things is through a private media, which makes money by getting us to think of everything as a business. And so broken families and a dysfunctional political discourse kind of, the only thing that works in some ways is, markets. So everyone thinks that everything else is a market. But then you take this market sensibility into the ballot box, it's bad for you. It's bad for the whole nation because then you get old people who think that, well, why should I care about pollution? That's going to be a young person's problem. They're not thinking about like what the nation needs. They're thinking about like they just want to do whatever they want to do for the next 3 years, right? Or you take this business notion into a family relationship on the other end, and I talked about that last week, where you just get these mercenary relationships where as soon as it doesn't work out, one of the partners bounces. Right? And the whole idea with a family and marriage is that like we're leaving that behind. You're no longer civil actors. People who are dating or in situationships or whatever, they are civil actors. People who are married are family actors, and that's completely different. It's a different kind of unity. One, you can just quit the other person, and that's fine. And then the other part of the peculiarity of a family unity is you can't just quit the other person. All right, I hope this has been clear. I'll see you next Monday with a little bit of free game. If you like anything I say, and I think you should, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick